Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. Want to thank our primary sponsor, Walther Firearms, title sponsor. Bottom line is, Walther's got a 30-day money-back guarantee on all the competition-appropriate Walther pistols. If you buy one and you don't like it for some reason, that'll be your fault. But if that's the case anyway, Walther will give you a shipping label and all of your money back. I don't think there's anybody else in firearms in the firearms industry willing to do that. Put their money where their mouth is and give it back to you so you can put it back in your mouth. 30-day money-back guarantee, Walther Pistols. All right, also, Targets USA, as you know, makes the finest steel targetry on the planet. All of our steel here at our home range in Newark, Ohio, comes from Targets USA, and my favorite one is the Rhino Knockdown. It sits on a 2x4 little tripod, has the same scoring zone as a mini popper, and is so easy to set up, so easy to move around. It is the best steel training target in the world. If you don't have steel in your training arsenal, go get yourself a Rhino Knockdown. Tell Jason Wood Steve Anderson sent you. There might be a promo code if you drop my name. And of course, CR Speed, as you know, manufactures the finest gun handling gadgetry you can wrap around your waist. I was pleasantly surprised to see a lot of CR Speed mag pouches on the Super Squad at Carry Optics Nationals. It's almost like these guys know what the good stuff is. Very interesting. And of course, Hunter's HD Gold is the only eyewear that I wear, and you can see that I are wearing it right now. And of course, OutdoorDynamics.net saved several matches. Ran into a few shooters that had some ammunition consternation, and we were able to get them some OutdoorDynamics.net ammunition, and it performed flawlessly. And of course, the AMG-Lab.com Commanderson timer continues turn heads, blow minds by putting the time right into the tablet. We saw, I don't know if it was 100%, but it sure was close. We saw a ton of AMG-Lab.com Commanderson timers at Nationals. I would venture to say it was pretty close to Hyundai P. I don't remember seeing another kind of timer there. Don't know if that's the official timer of Nationals or not, but boy, we sure did see a bunch of them. I know there's a backup. I know you've got a back order. If you send me your order number, I will do my best to get it expedited, but please don't send me hate mail because it's not my fault. I do not work for AMG-Lab.com. I do not make the timers. The only thing I can do is attempt to get your order expedited by the grace of my semi-celebrity, but please save the hate mail. I had one guy. He literally thinks that Anderson sits there and makes AMG-Lab.com Commander's time. I don't make them, guys. I just know they're the best. And I will try to get your order expedited. I can make no promises, but I will attempt it. And of course, ShootingSportsInnovations.com does not have any of those problems because you make an order from ShootingSportsInnovations.com. Nathan Carter will ship it to you immediately. So go check it out. It's also the official roadside sobriety test for North Carolina. If you get pulled over in North Carolina on suspicion of driving under the influence, if you can type out ShootingSportsInnovations.com on your phone the first time with no errors, you will get out of that traffic stop scot-free. Well, not really, but it's kind of fun anyway. All right, so you can always go to upcoming classes on AndersonShooting.com and see where we're at and what we're doing. I've got a couple of classes I still need to add to the website. Guys, I have been on the range nonstop for the last 20 days. I'm a little behind on email. I'm doing my best to get that caught up. I'm actually leaving today to go to Double Eagle in the Poconos Mountains, stay in the famous Haunted Mansion. The Double Eagle guest house is haunted. My first experience was quite interesting. I was laying in bed, drifting off to sleep, my mind conjuring up images of ghosts, and I heard footsteps at the foot of my bed. And this was actually my second little haunted experience. This wasn't really one, but it was close to one. So I heard footsteps at the foot of my bed, and I sat up, bolted upright, and screamed some obscenities. We're not going to repeat those. Let's see. It would have been, what would have been? It would have been, let's see. Holy excrement, whiskey, tango, foxtrot were the exact the exact obscenities that I uttered. And then I found out that what I actually heard was people walking around upstairs. The interesting part of all that is the people that were walking around upstairs, or what I thought were people walking around upstairs, never heard me scream. So in the double Eagle Poconos Haunted Mansion, no one can hear you scream. And I did have another experience right before that. I went in to use the restroom there at the master suite, and everything was fine. And when I went over to wash my hands, I came back and noticed that the little carpet around the throne of contemplation had been folded in a way that I could not have possibly done myself. So 2 Haunted Mansion experiences, Double Eagle, Poconos Mountain. But we're leaving today to go there. We'll be there all weekend. We will have some mental management opportunities coming up. Guys, my mental management graduates just keep crushing it. If you come out of mental management and you do everything in the class, that includes the journal, that includes the directive affirmation, that includes the flow chart. Those are the 3 things that people tend to not follow through on. And if you've done mental management and you're not doing those 3 things, journal, flow chart, directive affirmation, imprints, you're not getting the maximum bang for your buck. But the people that do those things are enjoying massive, massive success. And of course, you can always come to our range here in Newark, Ohio, in the shadow of the famous Longaberger Basket Building. If you don't know what the Longaberger Basket Building is, a quick Google will reveal perhaps the world's only office building shaped like a wicker basket. Now, you could buy it. It is for sale. But you can't have an egg business there and keep all your inventory there. And you can't even count your inventory. That's because you can't count your eggs before they hatch, and you can't keep all your eggs in one basket. A couple of dad jokes there for you first thing in the morning. And of course, if you have access to a range with competition appropriate props, you can get a class for free by being the class sponsor and arranging the range. And we had a last minute flurry of activity here at the range leading up to Carry Optics Nationals. We probably had 6 shooters come through here in the days leading up to Carry Optics Nationals. There is Iron Sight Nationals in Marengo, Ohio in October. So you guys shooting Iron Sight Nationals, if you want to come down to the range here in Newark, we can get you prepped for that, no problem. And I think that's about it. Yep, that's it for the news. So Carry Optics Nationals is over. And what we're going to be talking about today is what to do after that match. Now, this applies to any big match or any match at all. We're only using Carry Optics Nationals because it just happened. The memory is still fresh, and I was deeply embedded in the primary super squad for all of it. I saw some very, very interesting things. I'm not going to tell you about all the things I saw, out of respect for the people that I saw do them, but I saw some very, very interesting mental game opportunities. So if you shot the match, Carry Optics Nationals, or any other match, here's what I want you to do. You're going to be tempted to go right to your mistakes. I don't want you to do that. Wow, I got to look at my mistakes if I want to get better. We're going to get to that here in a minute. But first, the first thing we're going to do is identify the successful formula. On your best stage of Carry Optics Nationals or any other match you've just completed, what did you do prior to your best stages? Guys, this is what you have to know. I know you want to look at your mistakes. I get it, and we're going to do that. But the very first thing you've got to do is understand what was happening when you were getting it right. You know what's happening when you get it wrong. I mean, you've known that for a long time. What you don't know, most of you, is what is happening when you're getting it right. Isn't that more important? Wouldn't it be better to know what's happening when you're getting it right than when you're getting it wrong? Well, you gotta focus on your mistake. No, you don't. You don't. Well, you can. You can focus on your mistakes all you want to, and you're going to get more of them. Well, if I don't look at my mistakes, yes, of course. Of course we need to look at that, and we're going to. However, if you don't know what's happening when you're getting it right, you won't be able to get it right on a regular basis. But if you know the mental conditions that exist when you are getting it right, you can duplicate those conditions and you can duplicate that success. I know it sounds overly simplistic, but you guys aren't. Well, some of you are doing it. Listeners to this program are doing it. Many people are not. So what did you do prior to your best stages? What were you thinking about prior to your best stages? What steps did you follow? What were you thinking about while you were shooting? And what did you think about when you got done? Every shooting event has thought before, during, and after. Before should be 100% strategy. During should be the least amount of conscious thought you can manage. Everybody shoots their best when they're not thinking about nothing. We understand that. However, that's not reliable or inducible on demand, particularly if you're feeling pressure. So you got to pick something to think about to keep your number of thoughts as low as possible. And when you get done, you need to either think about what you did well, or you need to think about what you would do different if you got an immediate reshoot. Most of you are coming off your stages shooting pretty well and finding 6 things wrong. And then you go to your next stage, you do pretty well and you find 6 things wrong. And pretty soon those things you're thinking about get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's because you're reinforcing this idea of getting it wrong. Not only are you reinforcing the specific things that you're doing wrong, but you're reinforcing the idea that you never get it right. You come off stage 1, it goes pretty good. I screwed that up. I messed up this, and this. Dude, you shot pretty good. Nah, I messed up 3 things. Oh, okay. Stage 2, you shot pretty well. Hey, man, that was a good run. Nah, I screwed up these 4 things. And then on stage 3, you screw up even more. And you don't know why it's happening. Well, it's happening because you're feeling like you never shoot good enough and you know exactly 8 ways to screw up. What you don't know is how you got it right. Well, you're telling me to give myself participation trophy, put on my training wheel, smack myself on the bottom, tell myself I'm great. Yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm telling you to do. It's exactly what I'm telling you to do. Particularly at the match. Hey, I did that really well. Hey, I did a good job of doing these things. Hey, I went 1 for 1 on steel and I smoked the swinger. You're never going to have a perfect run except for a stage win. A stage win's a perfect run. And your percentage of the stage winner is the percent you were perfect. If you came in 80%, guess what? You were 80% perfect. You were not a 20% failure. You were 80% perfect. Think of it that way. Now, because I know you want to talk about your mistakes, let's talk about your mistakes. You've got to understand if your errors were mental or technical. And here's how you know it. Did you have the skill required for the shots? I can think of a handful of shots that people may not have had the skill for. 25 yards strong hand only. Most people don't. I've practiced strong hand shooting my entire life, and I've never practiced it at 25 yards because I didn't think I'd ever see it. I practice at 15 all the time, but never 25. Now, 25 is not a whole lot different than 15, but it is a little bit more difficult. And that's one thing you may not have been able to do technically. Hardcover swingers with hardcover on the target and also hardcover steel, no-shoot steel, that's not something people practice a lot. Most swingers are open targets here in the U.S. Now in IPSC, outside of America, swingers very frequently have partials and no-shoots on them. In America, we don't see that quite as much. So that's something you need to be practicing. Hardcover targets on movers. If you don't have a swinger or access to a swinger, you need to get a swinger or access to a swinger. Swingers were the deciding factor on numerous stages. Not necessarily misses, but extra time. Right? If a guy had to wait for 4 passes to make sure he got 2 shots, that's all. That could be 6 to 8 seconds for 4 more passes. Very, very easily. If a guy can get 2 shots on 1 pass or 1 shot on 2 passes, 1 shot apiece on 2 passes, he could save 4 seconds off that run very, very easily. So make a list of the things that you simply were not able to do from a technical level. You did not have the skill for those challenges. There weren't very many of them, but there were a handful. A more likely problem is that you did have the skill and you couldn't get access to it. That's a much more likely problem. That would be the case for 95% of the errors we saw at that match. I was very, very surprised at how many super squatters were routinely missing steel on day 1. We had a lot of steel makeups on stage 1. Now, also interestingly, and I don't know if it was because we talked about it, I didn't talk about it very much, not around the squad. Last thing I'm going to do is give these guys unsolicited advice, even if I know I can help them. We did mention it when we went live with Hunter's HD Gold. I'm not sure how many people saw that. Or maybe they were smart enough to figure it out. But day 2 and 3, we saw many, many, many less makeups on steel. It's almost like these guys figured it out. They were overnight like, well, let's see here. Had a lot of makeups on steel. I wonder what would happen if I just put the dot in the middle of the target and or watched it lift. Yeah, I could probably hit steel. I mean, 15, 20-yard mini popper isn't that hard of a shot if you do it correctly. Obviously, every single super squatter can make those shots unless they get in a hurry. Did you make careless mental mistakes? Did you disrespect the small stage? Did you have a brain fart on the 2 multiple string stages? Did you forget a target? These are careless mental mistakes. And then, did you overtry or undertry? Overtry means, I got to get out there and give it 110%. Not good, because by definition, that will not be a subconscious performance. Or, did you slow down and get your hits? Did you undertry? Undertrying also requires the conscious mind. The irony of both of these, undertrying and overtrying, is they prevent access to your training. If you're given 110%, you are not shooting subconsciously. Therefore, you do not get access to the training that you have done. If you are undertrying, that means you're riding the brakes a little bit. Once again, you are not getting access to the training that you have done because your conscious mind is in control. Your conscious mind doesn't know how to do anything with the gun unless it's a new skill. Your subconscious mind knows how to do everything you've ever trained for. But if you overtry or undertry, you're not going to get access to it. Well, I like to come out at about 75%. Okay, well, that's going to be 75% of your skill. If you're okay with 75% of your skill, then you come out 75% all you want to. But starting in zone 1 like the Super Squad did, high point stages, many of them, 75% is going to give you about 75% of the points. That's all there is to it. So inside of your class, inside of where you have the skill to finish, undertrying is a great way to come in third, and overtrying is a great way to come in last. I saw a very, very unfortunate example of overtrying on a particular stage on the Super Squad. One of the Super Squatters severely overtried and paid a price for it. And it wasn't what I was expecting to happen. Watching this guy get ready to shoot, I was expecting the exact opposite. I was extremely surprised by what I saw. But it did happen. And overtrying and undertrying are always caused by a lack of confidence. And that means I don't think that my normal performance will be good enough for the result that I want. Therefore, I'm going to be extra cautious so I don't screw up, or I'm going to give it 110% so I really, really try to do well. Overtrying will always eventually cause a big mistake. Undertrying is a great way to come in the middle of the pack. That's all there is to it. Okay? Now, one thing you can do when you've identified the mental errors, so you have to know the difference. Were your errors technical or mental? Do you not have the skill for the shot on the mistakes that you made, or did you not get access to the skill that you have for the shot when you made a mistake? The mental errors are the easiest ones to fix. If you're above A class, it was probably a lapse in visual patience. If you're below A class, B class is probably more likely to be trigger than sight. The irony is, the better the shooter is, the more likely they are to disrespect their sight picture. It's the weirdest conundrum, dichotomy conundrum in shooting. The better a shooter is, the more likely he is to disrespect his sight picture. Fascinating. And that's because when you're taking 0.05 of a second to get a better sight picture, we'll use steel as an example, it feels like 3 to 5 minutes. Well, what are your options? Your options are get a correct sight picture, hit it the first time, or get an inappropriate sight picture and do makeups. You'll never have a makeup as fast as getting it right the first time. Never. The problem is it feels like it's taken forever. So go into Practice Score Competitor. And I think you can do it also on the regular Practice Score website. I've not ever tried it, but it looks like there is a way to do it on the regular Practice Score website. For sure, you can do it in Practice Score Competitor. Go through and fix your mental errors first. Go through and fix the issues that you know were mental. Extra shots on steel, that's typically mental. If you're below A class, that could have been a trigger thing, or it could have been a zero thing. You know, if you have a really close zero, your bullet will continue to rise at further distances. Not quite as much as it would on a rifle or an old school open gun, but the bullet will continue to rise if you have a close zero. So at 20 yards, bullets tend to be a little high. This is why I've advocated for years a 20 or 25 yard zero. A 7 yard zero makes no sense to me. Well, that's the average we see locally. I don't really care. I don't really care what you see locally. When the shots are more difficult, the shot's hard enough with having to do a bunch of math, without having to hold high or anything of that sort, right? We don't want to be doing that kind of math when we have a hard shot. So 0 for the furthest distance you can shoot a good group has always been my recommendation. Make sure we're still recording here. Yes, we are. Okay. Go in and fix your mental errors and see what that does to your standings. Your mics on static targets were 100% mental. You got in a hurry. You either held too close to the A zone, you were impatient with your dot, or you honked the trigger. That could be technical. Trigger error, depending on your skill level, could be mental or be technical. It's more likely to be mental at the caliber of shooters, pun intended, that we're talking about now. Go in and fix your mental errors and see what happens. You'll probably find yourself moving up 5 to 10 places if you just fix your mental errors. Okay? Now, let's go back and look at this. What technical challenges were you unprepared for? Jay Beal called it bigger than Christmas. He said, I'm not even looking at the match book because these stages aren't going to look anything like this book when they get on the ground. And he was 90% right. There was, well, maybe 95%. There were exactly 2 stages that I can think of that were predictable from the match book. The 10 and 15 yard standards, I think stage 5 was very similar to the match book. And then the barrel stage, I think that was 18 perhaps, were identical to the match book. Those were the only 2 that were 100% predictable from the match book. Everything else, kind of a crapshoot. So if you got into that match book and you made stage plans based on that match book, that was a complete waste of time. Maybe stage 1, your plan would have been sufficient, but if you prepared for the challenges, you'd have been just fine. Oh, look, a lot of retreating. Oh, look, some opportunities, albeit. I don't know if it's albeit or albeit. It doesn't really matter. If I say albeit, I'll be sure. I wonder if I'll be sure is sure, albeit. Never mind, I'll wait to get it right. So, were you prepared for hardcover movers? Were you prepared for strong hand shooting at 25 yards? Were you prepared for partials at 15 yards? Were you prepared for steel at 20 to 30 yards? These are things that you can prepare for to be better prepared for next time. Right? We're going to be adding a lot of drills to our classes based on things we saw at this Nationals. Interestingly, the training we did here at our range prior to this Nationals was pretty accurate. We put up a lot of partials. Ton of partials. My Canadian friends came down for a day and a half, and we shot stages with partials in them. I think we gave them 20 or 30 stages with partials. We didn't talk a lot about technique. We talked about, hey, this is what you're going to see. This is how you need to be shooting it. Right? So, hardcover movers, strong hand at 25 yards, partials at 15, steel at 20 to 30 yards. And the most fascinating thing, well, not the most, one of the most fascinating things was, remember that 3 triangle stage where all y'all just knew that going to the front would be dumb? Well, about half the super squad disagreed with you. I found that very, very interesting. It's almost like whoever designed that stage wanted to make that a viable option so it wouldn't be discounted immediately. About half the super squad used the back 2 boxes, about half the super squad went to the front, and the times were within a second of each other. It's almost like the stage designer knew what they were doing. So those are technical challenges you could be more prepared for. If you could reshoot your poor stages, what would you do different? I would bet that what you would do different is a little bit more visual patience. Isn't it? If you go back and look at your poor stages, I'm guessing the gun went off when the dot was not in the where you wanted the bullet. I could think of 2 examples where that was for sure the case. Oh, look, my dot's over there. That's interesting. The gun went off. Huh, weird. And that visual patience, that unwavering commitment to seeing what you need to see with every shot you fire, that is the centerpiece of mental management. What we do in mental management is a systematic reduction of thought prior to shooting. Well, in competition, that's what we do. We take a high number of thoughts when you arrive at the stage, and we systematically reduce them down to the lowest possible number so that you can get as close as possible to shooting without thinking. We're extremely good at teaching people how to do that. And we also teach you how to grow your confidence when you're at the range training or away from the range. We teach you how to constantly grow your confidence, because remember, confidence is at least 30% of performance, and the better you are, the higher that number is. Now, think about your poor stages. If the stages were still set up and somebody called you and said, hey, man, we realized there was a problem with the stage on stage 4, 6, 7, 9, and 12. Come down and reshoot them. What would you do different? I would bet money that it would be something related to visual patience, the vast majority of the time. Outside of the unexpected technical challenges, well, I don't know if they were unexpected, but hardcover movers, strong hand at 25 yards, partials at 15, and steel at 20 to 30, most of you probably were not expecting that. And still, there were numerous opportunities where people could have stayed moving and didn't, because they didn't have the confidence that they'd be able to shoot points. And I haven't seen video from Christian Seiler, but I would also bet money that he was able to stay moving where other people were not. I do know for a fact that Brantley Merriam won stage 3 by staying moving where the others did not. I know that for an absolute fact because I watched it happen. Right? Stage 3 was one of those stages. Had to go to both corners, and there was an opportunity to stay moving in the middle. Brantley told me before he shot, I'm going to stay moving because I know I can do it, and he won the stage by a full second. Well, I can't shoot good points while I'm moving. Okay, well, that's your problem. That doesn't mean that shooting while moving is not the right thing to do. It just means you're not able to do it. You need to be able to do it. And by the way, we have a shooting while moving drill that we do at the end of virtually every class. You guys that have been to class either here or somewhere else know it. It's counting alphas, and you might as well call it the 2023 Carry Optics Let's Get Moving drill, and all we would have to do is back that up to 15 to 20 yards. We normally do it 7 yards to 12 yards. All we got to do is back it up a little bit, and you'll be able to shoot alphas while you move. Okay, if you could revise your training for this match, what would you do different? If you could go back and give yourself 45 days to get ready for this thing. Steel. A lot of makeups on steel out there, and a lot of uncalled makeups. I was astonished by how many dirt makeups I saw in the Super Squad. That was really surprising. Movers. Do you have access to movers? All right, swingers, the moving targets were a big deal here. Not so much in success or failure, although that was a thing, but more so in the amount of time it took. More so in the amount of time it took people to shoot them and or feel like they'd shot them. Right? Set up some movers. Shot up targets on the front, clean targets in the back. Learn to call your shots on the swinger. I had a guy come down here yesterday, a 16-year-old junior shooter. He was able to call his shots on swingers in about 10 minutes. You know why? Because I made him do it over and over and over. A lot of opportunities to retreat. And I don't know about numerous, but several DQs on retreating stages. Do you know how to move backwards with the gun? Do you know how to do that? Can you manage a reload while you're moving backwards? This match was also interesting in that it had longer periods of non-shooting than I was expecting. Hit factors were a little lower than I was expecting. So anytime you're not shooting, your hit factor is 0. So in this way, this match was a little bit closer to a foot race on a lot of stages, depending on how you shot them. We had a lot of longer sprints than you guys see at local matches. And by the way, classifier 9910, both sides now, is the ultimate drill for foot speed. If you want to get better at shooting and then moving and then shooting, the classifier 9910 is you could call that the Carry Optics 2023 drill. All you'd have to do was add a third box and put some distance steel in there. Right? Now, obviously, you couldn't use the hit factors, but classifier 9910, if you're interested in posting up and running, that's the absolute best one to work on, and you can get immediate feedback on how well you're doing. Well, you're just telling me to shoot classifier. Well, I'm telling you to practice what the sport requires. And this particular match had a lot of long periods of movement with no shooting. You want to get better at that? 9910 is a way to get better at that with real. Oh, and by the way, the targets are at 11 to 12 yards on that one. So they're intermediate distance, which we saw a lot of. Right? And anytime you have long periods of movement where you can't be shooting, entries and exits are very important. Leaving sooner and shooting sooner. Anytime you can't be shooting while moving, you've got to have a contribution to leaving, and you've got to be shooting as soon as you get where you're going. Most of you listening to this program are very good at getting your feet where they need to be for the next shot. But where's the gun? When your feet get where they need to be, is the gun ready to shoot? That's way more important than what your feet are doing. Well, I like to work on my feet. That's great, but your feet can't shoot the gun. Unless you're the dude that literally shoots with his feet, your feet can't shoot the gun. That guy, his feet are more important. Well, still the gun's more important. He just happens to be using his feet. That's so inspiring, by the way. Shooting while moving. We haven't seen Christian Seiler's videos, but I am convinced he stayed moving where other people did not. I'm just convinced of it, because there is nobody, probably nobody better in the world than Max Michel at posting, shooting, and posting. And if Christian Seiler got ahead of him on field courses, he virtually had to have stayed moving, because there were plenty of opportunities for it if you could do it. If you couldn't do it, or if it was too risky, you couldn't do it. Okay? And number 7, were you prepared for rain? It rained for about, Super Squad, it rained for about 30% of the match. Something like that. Do you practice in the rain? Do you know what your dot does in the rain? If you pull up your gun in the rain and there's 4 dots, do you know which one's the real one? Right? You must go out and train in any conditions in which you're willing to compete. If you're not willing to compete in a tornado, you don't got to practice in one. But if you are willing to compete in light rain, you must shoot in light rain. If you're willing to compete in heavy rain, you must train in heavy rain, so you know what your gun is going to do. Did you lose focus due to heat or fatigue? One of the things that happens in the classes is, everybody wants an 8-hour class with a high round count. However, nobody goes out and shoots for 8 hours. Nobody goes out and practices for 8 hours straight. They want to do it in a class, but they don't ever do it on their own. And towards the end of the day, people get tired. If it's warm, they get hot. And they sometimes reach a point where they don't even really care anymore. I know I've been at numerous matches where you get to stage 5, it's 2 o'clock, the sun's beating down, you're like, I don't even care anymore. Well, you don't have that option at a major competition. You don't really have that option at any competition, not if you want to do well. But if you're losing focus due to heat or fatigue, you've got to control your thoughts. And you need to prepare for anything the environment can throw at you, and then you need to ignore it. It's as simple as that. If the environmental conditions are unfavorable, prepare and ignore. Did you manage your rest and nutrition? Right? Whatever the template is, whatever sleep amount you need, whatever you need to eat or not eat, drink or not drink, did you do that? And perhaps most importantly, number 9, did you get subconscious stage plans? I am willing to bet that your best stages at Nationals sounded like this. So go back and just think about your very best stage that you shot. I bet it was something like this. I bet you knew that stage inside and out. I bet you had double-digit reps of your stage plan. And I bet regarding the result, you had one of these thoughts. Either you'd already made your big mistake, you didn't care anymore, so you didn't care about the results. We saw a lot of that on the Super Squad. Number 2, you weren't worried about the results, which is pretty similar. Number 3, you knew you were going to do well. Or number 4, you knew you were going to crush it. What those all have in common is you weren't worried about the results. You weren't worried about screwing up. One of my favorite moments on the Super Squad was somebody said, I know who it was, but I'm not going to repeat their name out of respect for them. Somebody was heard to remark, well, I hope I don't screw this up. And Nils said, be careful, I'll send you over to talk to Steve. Because if you're worried about screwing something up, you're thinking about screwing up, which means you're picturing screwing up. If it's a particular part of the stage you're worried about and you're picturing or thinking about struggling on that, you've just predicted it and it's going to happen. It's far more likely to happen. Did you decide early and prepare correctly? That was the thing that I saw the most of on the Super Squad. These guys decided early and they prepared correctly. Max Michel still has the most rigorous stage preparation on the super squad. He spends more time visualing, well, that I could see, right? And he does it in a way that's a little bit more obvious. He takes up a little bit more room. He doesn't do it by his range bag. He'll actually do it on the range. He'll visualize the stage sort of in 3D, I guess you'd say, meaning if the stage has X period of square footage, he will use a similar amount of square footage to visualize the stage as he's walking around. He does that a little bit larger than most of them, and he does it more often than anybody I could see. And maybe I just noticed him because he takes up a little bit more space. Did you get double-digit reps? And did you decide early and prepare correctly? When I was with some other squads, I saw a lot of people decide. And they only gave you 4-minute walkthroughs instead of 5. Now, most of you did a pre-walk, so that wasn't a huge deal. But if you got 4 minutes and you're still deciding at minute 3, you're in big trouble. And I don't know that I ever saw stage plan be the deciding factor on a stage. I saw stage execution be the deciding factor over and over and over again. So you guys that spent too long deciding and not enough time preparing, that's a mistake you don't have to make again. The most interesting thing about this was during the pre-walk, during the staff shoot, we heard a lot of brilliant stage planning. And then when the super squad got there, they did something different very, very frequently. And anytime there was an option, right, start here, go there, go here, it was about 50-50. There were not very many times where everybody did the exact same thing. Stage 1 is an exception. Stage 21 is an exception. But anytime there were options, they didn't all do the same thing. I thought that was very interesting. All right, so again, going back to your best performance, I'm willing to bet you had a subconscious stage plan, you didn't have a lot of active thought, and you weren't worried about the results. And if that's the model, that's the model. Please resist the temptation to become an expert in your mistakes. Becoming an expert in your mistakes simply means that you'll get better at making mistakes. Becoming an expert in your success simply means you'll get better at being successful. And number 10, did you feel more pressure than expected? Pressure is stress caused by the perceived importance of the event. In this case, the perceived importance and the actual importance are pretty high, but it's always the perceived importance, right? And something that is more important will be perceived to be more important, but sometimes we perceive things that aren't very important to be more important. Classifiers, for example, in local matches are not really that important in the grand scheme of things. But pressure is stress caused by the perceived importance of the event, and all it's ever going to do is amplify what you are thinking and feeling. If you are feeling confident, pressure gives you more of it. If you are feeling anxious, worried, doubtful, nervous, fearful, pressure will make you more anxious, worried, doubtful, nervous, fearful. One of the largest mental errors that we saw in the match was caused by pressure. And in this case, pressure amplified fear, doubt, worry, and anxiety. I need to do this a certain way, and I'm not sure I can do it. As opposed to, I need to do this a certain way, and I'm 100% confident I can do it. So if you felt pressure, if pressure arrived or intensified unexpectedly, it amplified whatever you were thinking or feeling. Understand that. The next time you feel pressure, ask yourself, what is being amplified? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it worry? Is it anxiety? Or is it confidence in the fact that I know this stage inside and out and I can absolutely execute my stage plan? If that's what you're thinking and feeling, pressure gives you more of it. All right, folks, hope you've enjoyed this little breakdown, this little tutelage of what to do after the big match, in this case, the 2023 Carry Optics Nationals. I do have video of virtually every super squatter shooting every stage. I'll get that uploaded to the YouTube as rapidly as I can. And I don't really know much about these YouTube shorts. All I know is they get a metric crap ton of views. So any of the shorter stages will probably go up as shorts just to get my viewer count up, because that's what you're supposed to do on the YouTube. Don't fully understand it, but we're going to do it anyway. All right, folks, hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you're interested in doing mental management to put the mental mistakes behind you forever, or at least be able to diagnose and repair them very, very quickly, shoot me an email. Tell me you want to do mental management. We can do it online. You don't have to wait for a class to be scheduled. If you'll tell me when you're available for 3 2-hour windows with courteous respect to the Eastern time zone, we can make that happen. We can get that scheduled for you and make it available to other people. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Till we meet again, be like me, do what I do, say it with me. 1, 2, 3, get to work.